right, boys, we are back. And you know what else is coming on its way back? Hockey. Tradon, you're a hockey guy. Let's hear it.
All right. Just like last week, we're going to move on to the Central Division. But before I start, I do want to say that we are in the middle of the third period of the World Junior Tournament, the gold medal game between the U.S. And Canada. Canada is winning 2-0 currently. Hopefully they can continue.
USA is definitely winning 2-0.
What game are you watching?
USA is winning 2-0. Excuse me.
Tradon's living in a parallel universe.
I'm living in a different universe.
Yeah. Canada guy.
Also, we didn't get these names for all the NHL divisions until after last week. So the division names are as follows. We have the Scotia NHL North Division, which consists of all the Canadian teams. We have the Honda West Division. We have the Mass Mutual East Division, which we just talked about last week. And this week, we are going to be talking about the Discover Card NHL Central Division. Those teams include the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Dallas Stars, Columbus Blue Jackets, Nashville Predators, the Florida Panthers, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Detroit Red Wings. So I'm going to start just like last time. I'm going to give you guys my ranks in order, starting with the Tampa Bay Lightning. In 2019-2020 season, they finished the regular season with a 42-21-6 record for 92 points in 70 games. They scored well above average goals for and defended better than the league average as well. They maintained better special team stats in both categories, and this brought them excellent success in the bubble where they took the entire competition series after series and they became the Stanley Cup champions. They seemed unbeatable at that rate. My outlook for 2021, going back to back in the NHL is incredibly difficult, especially during the hard cap era. And we just found out before Christmas that it won't get any easier as Nikita Kucherov is out for the regular season. He instead will be replaced by Captain Steven Stamkos as he comes off his injury that kept him out of the bubble, except for that couple shifts where he scored in the finals, which was pretty amazing. So I guess as far as replacements go, the Lightning could do a lot worse than Steven Stamkos. He puts up a point per game on average in his career. He's breached 100 points in 2019. I mean, even before he got injured, or he was on pace anyway. The team has incredible depth, as we saw in the bubble. Braden Point has become a huge part of this team, and they have Andre Palat, Anthony Cirelli, who plays solid two-way play. And finally, they have one of the best, if not the best defenseman on the planet in Victor Hedman, who continues to be their go-to guy year after year. And they have their elite goaltending in Andrei Vasilevsky. This team, if you want to talk about fantasy teams, James, this is a fantasy team. They are flawless from beginning to end. They are what every team should strive to be. And I said that on this podcast, back in the bubble. They've added nobody, and they've solely subtracted Nikita Kucherov, which is crazy because everyone at the end thought that they would have to completely blow up the roster. But then they were able to bring Nikita Kucherov onto LITR, giving all that cap space available for the team to keep the team together. So I'm not saying that they, pushed Nikita Kucherov off a bridge, but, if the fact that he got hurt is not necessarily terrible for the makeup of the team. My players to watch are Steven Stamkos and Braden Point. Steven Stamkos, all eyes will be on the captain as he makes his way back into the league. As mentioned, he's an elite goal scorer and playmaker in this league. Though the offense doesn't revolve around Stamkos anymore, he's still a huge part of the team, and how he takes place of Kucherov this season could determine the success of the Lightning in their attempt for a repeat. And Braden Point, this third-round pick is slowly becoming one of the best players in the league. And actually, I sit here today and I really am upset by me not putting Braden Point in my top 20 or 25 NHL players. I sit here and I completely blanked on him, which is crazy. He's still underrated, clearly. Just based on his ability to score and bring up his line. And his performance in the playoffs has been nothing short of amazing. So look to him to continue his greatness. So, Alex, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Does the absence of Kucherov affect your view on the Tampa Bay Lightning status as a clear Stanley Cup contender? Are you worried about this team this season without that Russian star forward?
I mean, they are still a cup contender for sure. And you pretty much nailed it. They lose Kucherov and they gain Steven Stamkos. Like, how lucky are they that that's just how that works? Stamkos, it will be interesting to see because he only played for a couple minutes during the bubble. He re-injured himself, so he hasn't played a lot of competitive hockey in a really long time at this point. So I do think it's going to take Stamkos just a little bit to kind of get his legs back underneath him, but he is an elite talent in this league. I'm not too worried about the Lightning. I think that the way that these new divisions worked out, they kind of lucked out a little bit. I would say this is a little bit easier of a division compared to the East like we did last week. So, no, I expect the Lightning to thrive even without Kucherov. They're still going to be great.
I definitely agree. Like I said, this is the most well-constructed team in the National Hockey League. All the way down the lineup, each line ranks in the top 10, which no other, their fourth line is one of the top 10 fourth lines in the league, and they have that all the way up the lineup. It's crazy. There was a time where, we thought this whole time we would be dismantled, but it wasn't. With the depth alone, I think that they're going to be clear winners of the division and, definitely cup contenders. Coming in number 2, I have the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars went 37-24-8 to place third in the Central Division and fourth in the Western Conference, giving them the last bye of the bubble, meaning they didn't have to play the qualifier. Dallas faced some adversity early on, dropping many games in the beginning of the season. They faced the shocking dismissal of Jim Montgomery in December 2019. And they had to face the challenges of transitioning to the new coach, Rick Bowness. Despite all those trials and tribulations, Dallas finished third in the Central, took care of the Flames, Avalanche, and Golden Knights in the bubble, and made their way up to the Stanley Cup final, where they lost in, it was very close. I mean, they definitely gave them a fight. Last year, the Dallas Stars ranked second in defense with just 2.52 goals against per game, which is really where they really shine. Offensively, however, only the Columbus Blue Jackets were inferior offensively among the 24 postseason clubs that went to the bubble, posting only a 2.58 goals per game. That's 26th in the entire league. Despite all of the offensive challenges, they did manage to complete clearly superior teams in the bubble, and I expect that defense to continue. My outlook offensively, there are no major changes that would pose improvement on the goal scoring side. Tyler Seguin will see an extended absence, which is a major problem for the Stars, in my opinion. And he's bar none the top offensive player on the team. They do have some depth, but those depth individuals will need to have major contributions to replace that loss of production. Defensively, I have no major worries. I mean, they rank 11th in terms of scoring chances against. The emergence of John Klingberg and Esa Lindell on the back end are top tier pairings. Jamie Oleksiak on the second tier pairing with Miro Heiskanen that's another elite pairing. Goaltending wise, Dallas has seen amazing stats from Ben Bishop and 1B backup Anton Hudobin, as we saw in the postseason. However, we may not see the top 2 goaltenders suit up for the team, as Ben Bishop is still facing injury and Anton Hudobin is facing some immigration issues currently, but those should be ironed out shortly, that is my guess. They only added Mark Pysyk really on the defensive side. There's no major subtractions besides Ben and Sagan temporarily. Players to watch, I have Jamie Benn. Jamie Benn is very much an elite talent in this league, but offensively he's seen major regressions since his huge breakout in 2015 and 2016. He has been publicly criticized by management and ownership of the Dallas Stars, but nonetheless has been a very good leader for the team and that just made it to the Stanley Cup final. But all eyes will be on him to bring his team up and fill that gap offensively. And then Anton Hudobin. I mean, Hudobin will be looked at to continue his strong success from the postseason as Ben Bishop continuously heals from his injuries. He'll be playing more games without Ben Bishop, and so he's going to take on more of the load this season. And I wonder if that's going to hurt his ability to perform at elite level. But he's just going to have to continue to be stellar, and everyone will be watching that. So, James, you love this team in the bubble. I know you love them now. They're like your second favorite team in the league. And I asked you this question last season regarding the offense of this team. Are you worried about the offensive abilities without the likes of Tyler Seguin? Can this team make it to the Western Conference final without offensive breakouts from certain individuals?
So Tyler Seguin, labrum issue. Last report I read said he's out till April, possibly. That's a lot of time, a lot of games without him. The Stars typically play this physical, grinded out, defensive-minded game plan, like you mentioned earlier. But in the bubble, they showed us that they can score in bunches too and get up there. I think they scored they had a game with 6 goals. That's pretty crazy. For a team that is defense, 6 goals is big. In the bubble, Seguin did not play well. I think he had 3 points overall in the bubble, and they did relatively well. That being said, you can't. He did way more for this team than just score goals or provide points. He's a leader. He tells them where to go. He runs the right play. He goes to where he's supposed to be to open up lanes. He could have been a decoy a lot of the time, and it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but he was a factor. Other players stepped up big time in terms of scoring, but without Tyler Seguin, it's going to be hard to replicate that same success. But you've seen this before. Joe Pavelski, he was a top line center with the Sharks for a long time, and he scored 13 goals in the bubble. Like he has done it before, that he can be a top line center and have that same point production. Not the same as Tyler Seguin, but it's something. Mm-hmm. And also Miro Heiskanen on the defensive end, like he scores goals too. He scores a lot of points. He's only a third-year player. He's going to his third year, and he's only gotten better. In 68 games last year, he scored 35 points. The year before that, I think he had 30 points. So he's going up every single year. And this year, probably going to do the same thing. At the end of the day, though, if they can't find anybody who can fill that void or step up offensively, I don't know if they make it to the Western Conference Finals. You can't win a game with 0 goals. You can play the best defense in the world and make the game go forever, but if you don't score once, you're not going to win. And the NHL is full of top-tier talent. You need to be well-rounded to find success and move forward. Someone needs to step up. If nobody steps up, then Stars aren't going anywhere.
Damn, that was an epic answer. The Dallas Stars are lucky enough to have a division that is also weaker than we've ever seen it. Nashville and Winnipeg are shadow of their former selves. They will benefit from this fact, and I don't expect them to place any further than third place this season in the division, although their offensive abilities pose large concerns for me, as I mentioned. They have elite goaltending and defense, but if you can't, again, like to your point, James, if you can't push the puck in the net, your ability to win games is very limited. I expect a second place finish here with breakout seasons. Without breakout seasons, I expect quick elimination in the playoffs unless Tyler Seguin returns strong. Great job, James. Down. Number 3, we have the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina ended 38-25-5 last season, which netted them 4th in the Metro Division and 6th in the Eastern Conference. While they continued to impress season after season, and despite disposing the Rangers in the qualifying round, they faced the powerhouse Boston Bruins in the Eastern Conference quarterfinal and lost in 5 games. Interestingly, the team on paper appears to be top heavy with the likes of Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, and Andrei Svechnikov on the first line. However, the Canes finished 11th in the league and even checked in 8th on the power play, suggesting that their offense throughout the lineup is not terrible. The Hurricanes defense is their calling card, and there are a few teams that are stingier than the Hurricanes. They ranked 2nd in shots against, and only 4 teams allowed fewer scoring chances than the Canes. They are definitely one of the better defensive clubs. Goaltending wise, Peter Mrazek and James Reimer will split the duties like last year. Both had nice seasons, but underwhelmed relative to the contenders for the Stanley Cup. Oh, by the way, USA, congratulations. You won the gold medal. Fuck you, Canada. Outlook for 2021 for the Hurricanes. There were no major changes made to the roster, so I expect to see similar offensive numbers from mostly a top-heavy 3-headed monster, but you will see some help from the bottom lines. Stout defense will keep them within games, and beyond the top 3 offensive, we might have an underrated roster of individuals chipping in. Goaltending will be my largest question mark. There's no solid starting goaltender, just a very, very competent tandem of backups. Rob Brindamore has put together a more than competent defense, but goaltending will be their challenge. I expect to see a resurgence from Vincent Trocheck on the second line center position, which would be monumental. They did add Jesper Fast, but they lost Justin Williams to retirement. I know that there are 2 guys on this podcast that absolutely love Justin Williams. I am included as well. So we will miss him. Players to watch: Vincent Trocheck. Vincent Trocheck is a very solid center in the National Hockey League and seen his fair share of production in the past. However, he has seen some regression in later years, and that poses some concerns for me. In terms of depth, he is a player to watch, as a breakout season would spell wonders for the depth scoring and the ability for the Canes to compete not only in the division, but especially in the playoffs. And then Andrei Svechnikov. Svech has had a very dominant season last year, finding himself on multiple highlight reels for not only 1 but 2 successful lacrosse style goals. He has the ability to score on any given night and is always a joy to watch. All eyes will be on him to continue his dominance on that top line. Tyler, my question for you, man. Do you see this team making the playoffs? And if so, will they be able to get past the first round this time? Are you confident in this goaltending tandem, or will they struggle to overcome this clear missing key to their team?
Yeah, I think this Carolina Hurricanes team is definitely going to make the playoffs. I think there's in this division, there's two teams that are, I would say, are locks, which would be Tampa Bay and Dallas. I think Carolina is pretty close to a lock in this division, considering everyone else. Certainly, those last two spots are up for grabs. I think there's probably 3 or 4 teams that could get those last 2 spots, but I think Carolina is definitely pretty close to, I would say, a lock to get a playoff spot. They're young, they're talented, and they can compete with anybody. Like I think their depth is a little bit of concerns, scoring wise, but that top line is very good and can compete with any line. And as you mentioned with their goalies, yeah, it's a little bit of a weird situation. Like you said, they don't really have like the guy, their number one goalie, but they have 2 very solid goalies. It worked for them okay last year. And I think they're going to keep doing it until there's a reason to change it, albeit in injury, or maybe there's a trade that pops up that seems nice that they want to, get rid of one of those guys that they can get something good in return. So, something like that's going to have to happen for that to change. Obviously, they're both free agents after this season, so that will probably after next season be different. But for this season, I see that kind of staying the same. So yeah, I mean, for me, the Hurricanes, easy lock for the postseason. In terms of them winning a playoff series this season, I think that they will. I think they'll take a step up and they'll win a playoff series as long as they don't play the Boston Bruins, because the Boston Bruins have those guys' numbers. So as long as they don't face the Bruins the first round, I think the Carolina Hurricanes will win a playoff series.
Luckily, I think that the first round consists of just divisional play. So you're just going to play a series of the teams you just played 8 times, which seems insane, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I guess you'll know your competition, right? Something that just came to my mind is the fact that they have such a strong tandem that because there's so many back-to-backs, you can always rely on having a backup goaltender. So either one you can throw out and you're going to have a solid outing. So I guess they have that. This is another team that I think benefits from a relatively weak division. I think this team is clearly the 3rd best in the division. However, their contending abilities is where I take pause. I greatly question their goaltending tandem that was average at best, but clearly no starting goaltender has emerged. The defense is strong, and I don't think it's strong enough to overcome the obstacle. I also question depth scoring, so I have them getting 3rd in the Central, but I don't expect a long stretch in the playoffs. I would love to see them win a playoff series. I think that is a huge step for that franchise. There's just hasn't gone quite off the ground since they won the Stanley Cup against the Oilers in 2006, but we will move on after I say that. The number 4 Columbus, I have getting into the playoffs, are the Columbus Blue Jackets. They went 33, 22, and 15 for 6th in the Metro and 9th in the Eastern Conference. No one would have blamed you, last year at this time, if you expected a huge, I guess last year, before the season, because the season's all weird. No one would have blamed you for expecting a huge regression after they blew up their entire team, losing Sergei Bobrovsky, MVP candidate Artemi Panarin, and productive center Matt Duchene to the open market. Yet even before the playoff bubble, the team was in the hunt for an actual true playoff spot. They were given the opportunity to play given the expanded format, and their run came to an end in the first round thanks to the hands of the eventual champion Lightning. I mean, what better team to lose but 2? Offensively, the team took a dive and were the lowest scoring team to qualify in the playoffs, tying San Jose for 27th league-wide in goals per game. But Coach Tortorella utilizes a defensive first structure where the team enjoyed most of his success. The team managed to hold the high octane Maple Leafs to just 10 goals in their 5-game qualifying round. In and of itself is amazing. They allowed just 2.4 goals per game in those 9 postseason against the Leafs and Lightning. And that's pretty incredible stats right there. And 14th in scoring chances against for the season. That's pretty solid defense. On the goaltending side, Elvis Merzlikins and Jonas Korpisalo took over the tending duties after Bobrovsky left, and Merzlikins himself took the league by storm when Korpisalo went down, posting an electric 1.72 goals against average and near 95% or 95 save percentage in 10 January starts. That is unbelievable for a rookie at his age. My outlook for 2021, when you have a take no bullshit coach like John Tortorella behind the bench, you have a fighting chance. He's already won 2 Jack Adams and almost won it last year. They may have lost Josh Anderson and his grit scoring, but they netted fast, talented Max Domi and improved their depth scoring with Mikko Koivu from the Minnesota Wild. Defensively, there have been no major changes, so expect another stingy defensive team led by none other than Seth Jones and Zach Werenski. Elvis Merzlikins will be another interesting part of the puzzle as this team aspires to make the playoffs in regular fashion this time. I mentioned the additions and subtractions. Max Domi and Mikko Koivu are the big notables there. My players to watch here is Max Domi. He's had some issues on teams in the past from a coach perspective, but this is his third team in 4 seasons. Domi's offense touch returned to him during the last 2 seasons in Montreal. He scored 45 times and recorded 116 points in 153 games with the Habs, and he will be relied on to score at that second line center position. He's a good puck mover and creator in the offensive zone and could be the answer that Columbus needed down the middle. And then Seth Jones. Seth Jones is an absolute revelation for Columbus down on the back end. He's the most underrated defenseman in the National Hockey League, in my opinion. He's capable of playing an ungodly amount of minutes and is a captain of the team. So he not only shows his leadership on the ice, but also off the ice, presumably. I choose Seth Jones as a player to watch because he's going to strive to be a Norris Trophy winner, and he's coming off a strong postseason. I wouldn't expect anything less from him. So, Alex, my question for you, my guy. The Blue Jackets exceeded expectations last year despite the loss of key players the season before. How much do you think this weaker division helps this team, and do you think they crack a top 4 spot in this division?
Yeah, it seems to be a common theme is this weaker division is going to help some of these teams, and it's going to help the Blue Jackets as well. I think Max Domi having a coach like Torts is going to be a revelation for him as well. I mean, Torts is not going to put up with any of his bullshit, and if he continues to act out or whatever issues he's had with coaches in the past, things are not going to go well, and Torts won't take that. So I'm expecting a much more mature Max Domi, and I think the fact that he's going to be trusted to be one of those kind of top scorers is going to be a good thing for him. 100% agree with you about Seth Jones. Unbelievably talented and underrated. And that goaltending tandem will carry this team. They're both young guys, and I think they will probably have a slight regression compared to last year. They're probably not going to perform at that high of a level, but they're still going to be plenty good enough to get this Blue Jackets team into a playoff spot. It's going to come down to if they can score enough, but I think the Blue Jackets will make it.
I love it. My view, as mentioned, if you have Torts behind the bench, you're in for success, in my opinion. I believe the emergence of Elvis Merzlikins in net, Seth Jones and Zach Werenski on the back end, and the moves made on the forward side, including the signing of Pierre-Luc Dubois in the offseason. I expect this team to fight for that 4th position in the division and continue to fight in the playoffs. I do not see them as a contender for the Stanley Cup, but I do think they're just a few pieces shy of beating a team like Tampa Bay or Boston, honestly. James, you had a question?
Yeah, what do you think about the reports that Pierre-Luc Dubois wants out of this team because he does not like Torts?
Well, I guess I don't know what to think about it other than why did you sign a contract? You didn't have to. You didn't have to continue playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets. You are a very elite player in this league, and you've shown it. And if you really had a problem, I think that there are other teams that could use your abilities. But if that's the case, I guess we'll see how it unfolds this season. But I just find it interesting if you're going to willingly sign a contract with the team knowing that Torts is going to be behind the bench. You must not have that much of a problem with him, unless I guess money talks. But I can't imagine any other. There's other teams that would need your ability. So number 5, outside looking in, the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators finished 35-26-8, 5th in the Central and 7th in the Western Conference. After making a huge investment in Matt Duchene and divestment from PK Subban, the Predators expected a strong season and instead had its share of major pain. The Predators ended the season with a -2 goal differential that was second worst of 7 Central teams and nearly worst than the last place Chicago Blackhawks that made it to the bubble, who posted a -6 themselves. Offensively, the Predators finished 16th in goals per game last season, hanging around teams like the Jets, the Blackhawks, and the Oilers. They improved their power play, but still finished 24th. The Predators were once a team built on defense and goaltending, but those units were hit very hard as well this season. The team finished 18th in goals against per game alongside the Canadiens and Canucks. They ranked 17th in terms of scoring chances against. Lastly, goaltending was a major inconsistency. Pekka Rinne and UC Saros had just rough seasons last year. My outlook for 2021, with as much expectations as they had going in and failing, you'd expect them to make changes, but they didn't make very many changes. The depth chart offensively may even look thinner than it did last year. They lost Craig Smith, one of the top goal scorers last year. I didn't even know who really that was, and he's a top scorer. They did gain back Michael Granlund and Eric Holla, but I don't know if they're going to bring enough spark offensively. Their top two scorers were Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi. Roman Josi is a defenseman. I mean, that says a lot about your team. Pekka Rinne's postseason blunders and last season debacle puts a large question mark on the goaltending ability for this team as well. Players to watch. I have Matt Duchene. Matt Duchene is a player that was once considered a major elite talent in this league, but has had a dismal season relative to his $8 million cap hit. The Predators are the latest team to make a big investment on Duchene, and he hasn't returned on that investment at all. There will be pressure on him to respond to the criticism he's faced in the last couple of seasons. And John Hines. I'm actually going to pick a coach. John Hines was a midseason hire from the bench boss from the New Jersey Devils. Hines was a relatively quick hire after the dismissal of Peter Laviolette. It seems as if the Predators were in a rush to make this hire. And that opened up some question marks. And while it may be unfair to kind of judge a coach, by their, taking over a team midseason, we did see Rick Bowness do it in Dallas, and he was very successful. So I want to give John Hines a full season and see what he can do with this squad. But James, I know you like this team. Are we going to see a reversal of production and efficiency from all three parts of the squad? Offense, defense, and goaltending. Was last year a fluke, or did the Predators' door for the Stanley Cup contention already slam shut? Do you expect them to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
So I'm going to answer the first part of your question first. I do think there's going to be a complete shift in the way they're producing right now. I think last year was a fluke. I think the main thing here is a new coach, like you said, in John Hines. Peter Laviolette was a coach in Nashville for a very long time. And sometimes that voice gets overheard. Mm-hmm. You hear it way too much, and then you just start ignoring it. Like, do you guys ever have a teacher, like, you don't get something and they explain it over and over again, you still don't get it, but your friend says something a little bit different and all of a sudden it makes sense? Yeah. That's the same thing I'm seeing here. John Hines can be that new voice, different perspective. I mean, they could pretty much be saying the same things, but maybe he has a little different twist on it that just resonates more with the guys. And that's all it takes. Just that little twist, that little different perspective is all it takes to rejuvenate people. They can play better, make them play for you. Historically, you said that they didn't really add anybody. Historically, they're a good team. And historically, they have a really good core group of players. Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, and Ryan Ellis, they're producers. They do well. They've done well for a very long time. And I think Matt Duchene just needed a year to kind of gain chemistry and get in with the guys and learn the system. He had a different coach halfway through the year. There's a lot of chaos going on there. New team, new coach halfway through the year. It's hard to gain trust. It's hard to feel comfortable in that situation. But I think now being able to settle in to that city, get his place, get to know the guys a little better, get to know his coach who is instituting that system, it's going to make him feel more comfortable, and comfortability is key. That's going to go to the same with the goaltending here. Pekka Rinne and UC Saros. Saros ended up taking the reins towards the end of the season there. And I think giving more confidence to Saros over Pekka Rinne has been great for a long time, but he's getting old. But putting all the confidence towards Saros will give him that boost in confidence and morale as well. When people have confidence in you, when people believe in you, you play better. And that's what's going to happen here. If he gets put out there as the number one goaltender, he's going to play like a number one goaltender. And I think that's going to help him. I don't see them going to the Cup, but I expect them to be fourth in the division. So I'd be right in that spot right there. I don't really see him going anywhere past the first round, though.
Oh, but you haven't gone to the playoffs. That's better than it's, a true playoffs. I like that. What was once the most scary team in the National Hockey League has become a shadow of its former self, in my opinion. The lack of major additions to the squad does give me pause. And you're in a division of very hungry young teams that can win. And that saw progression last year, unlike your team that regressed. Depth scoring to me is unreliable. The one strong defensive core is starting to weaken outside of Roman Josi, who is absolutely amazing. I'm not going to dig this guy. I absolutely love Roman Josi. And the goaltending is my largest question mark of all. The regression on defense and goaltending will be their undoing, I think. But I do hope I do see some improvement down the stretch. I just don't expect them to see crack a playoff spot. But James, I hope you're right. But I just don't see it at this point. It's kind of a show me thing. Also, my issue with John Hines is the fact that you hired from New Jersey Devils, who he hasn't really shown anything there. But hey, that's why I'm in here and not a GM for the National Hockey League. So what do I know? Going in at number 6, I have the Florida Panthers. The Panthers ended the season 35-26-8, fourth in their division and 10th in the Eastern Conference. The expectations were high for the Panthers entering the season after hiring Joe Quenneville and adding Sergei Bobrovsky to the lineup. And while offensively the team was very good, the lack of strong defense and terrible goaltending from Bobrovsky left the Panthers in a very similar position outside the playoffs before the bubble. While they did make the playoffs, in their qualifying round, that qualifying round was very lackluster to say the least, and they lost to the Islanders in 4 games. The Panthers offense was always going to take them far, and they finished 6th in goals per game, while their power play was 10th league-wide. Fantastic. But that is where all the greatness stopped. Only 2 other teams allowed more goals per game than the Panthers, and that included the last place Detroit Red Wings and the Ottawa Senators, who were the second worst team in the league. On the goaltending side, the Panthers thought they solved their problem with signing Bobrovsky, who ended up finishing 3.71 goals against average and 87.3% save percentage in the month of October. That is unbelievably bad for a starting goaltender. And he ended the season with a 3.23 goals against average and a 90% save percentage. Great job. You improved marginally. You're still a $10 million goalie who's given me numbers that are just atrocious. My outlook for the Panthers lost their second greatest goal scorer in Mike Hoffman to free agency and didn't find an equivalent replacement for his loss of production up front. That's not to say that they didn't add anybody, but most were kind of depth signings and not to the equivalent, production level as Hoffman. Anthony Duclair may be the largest signing for the Panthers. For a low amount of money, he's going to put up 20 goals, and he was on track for 30 last year. That's fantastic. However, he falls short on the defensive side, which is their biggest issue. They always have Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau, but the major offensive production kind of stops there. Defensively, personnel changes weren't radical, so I would not expect any improvement on the defensive side unless goaltending can improve. The entire season may be up to Bobrovsky, who was inked for 7 years at $10 million a year, and he just put up one of his worst seasons in his career after signing that. Talk about a kick in the nuts. Players to watch, there's one, and that's Sergei Bobrovsky. Imagine that. He's a goaltender that should be putting up major numbers in this league. He's coming off the worst of his career, and all eyes will be on him to improve on his outing last season. And he could be the catalyst for this team succeeding or failing in the end. He's going to be not only looked at, he's going to be under a fucking microscope the entire season. And if he does not turn it around, the Panthers are going to be in major cap hell, as they have a $10 million goaltender that they can't trade because he sucks. So all eyes will be on him. So imagine this, Tyler. I have a question for you, and it largely revolves around goalie Bob. Will we see the resurgence of Sergei Bobrovsky this season? Or is he going to further regress? That's all I have. And I guess, do you see the Florida Panthers having a shot at the playoffs?
Yeah, no pressure, Mr. Bob. You're right. I mean, this team's success is 100% dependent on Bob Bobrovsky. I think I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I think he's going to have a bounce back season. I think he has too good of a track record to assume that he's going to suck again. But dude, you never know. I mean, maybe there's just some weird shit going on in Florida. I mean, I've been to Florida. It's pretty weird. So I understand if you just go there and you all of a sudden just kind of lose your mojo. I don't know. But like I said, he's a 2-time Vezina Trophy winner. You got to give this guy the benefit of the doubt here. I think he's going to have a bounce back season. In terms of the Panthers making the playoffs, if Bobrovsky can get to a Vezina level of play, I think they do have a shot, because like I said, I think this division isn't as strong as some other ones. And I think they could potentially grab a 4 spot. I see it. I think it's unlikely. I think he's going to have like a really, really great year, along with all their offense, playing to their level that they should be able to. And then they might have a shot, but I think it's a long shot. Like, as you mentioned, yeah, I mean, Bobrovsky is the center of attention for a reason, signed that huge contract. He has the success. He should be able to put it up. Or otherwise, like you said, the Panthers are going to be in a world of hell going forward.
Yeah. I hope you're right, but I'm going to say it flat out. I have no fucking faith in Bobrovsky. He has shown me nothing to rely on as of late. We have seen him succeed in the past, and although it seems like last year could be a sign of things to come, he could see a turnaround, but this could be the end. But, I don't know. I don't have confidence in the defensive core outside of Aaron Ekblad, who is fantastic. I absolutely love Barkov and Huberdeau. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that they'll be able to maintain their production and the production they lost from Mike Hoffman. The lack of depth scoring is a question mark to me, and I expect a 6th-place finish here. I have, rounding at 7th place, I have the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks finished the season 32-30-8, 7th in the Central and 12th in the Western Conference, and were the last team in the Western Conference to qualify for the extended playoffs. But they managed to beat the Edmonton Oilers in upset fashion. The Blackhawks ultimately lost to the Golden Knights in the first round. They were completely outclassed by the Golden Knights and were lucky enough to even ground out a win, in my opinion. Offensively, the team finished 18th in goals per game on the season, but their power play clicked in at just 15.2% for 28th league-wide. Kane continued his Hall of Fame career and has charged his way to 8th in points, but it wasn't enough for him to offset the lack of depth for the team. They're young. On the defensive side, they tied the Flames for 15th in goals against per game and 8th on the PK, but their shots against per game were the worst in the NHL, and they ranked 30th in high danger scoring chances against. Their goaltending tandem of last year has been completely changed, so any stats on that is completely meaningless because it's completely different. My outlook for 2021, the Chicago Blackhawks will be without their longtime captain and fearless leader, Jonathan Toews. He is their leader, their best penalty killer and elite goal scorer in this league. They have no major additions up front that would net them improvement or replacement of Jonathan Toews, although I would expect Kane to continue his Hall of Fame career as normal. Defensively, while Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook used to be powerhouses on the back end, they both have, especially in the case of Seabrook, regressed considerably, and they are nearing their last years in the NHL. They do have skilled offensive-minded defensemen in Adam Boqvist, but he's a couple years from being kind of the quintessential top-line defenseman, in my opinion. And then on the back end, you got Robin Lehner and Crawford are done. They got shipped out. Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia are the new goaltending tandem. Malcolm Subban has been the backup in this league since he entered, and Dahlia has even seen more modest NHL work, only appearing in 18 games in 2 seasons. While these individuals have potential upside, I can't find a more bleaker goaltending tandem, as between the two of them, they don't even account for 100 NHL career appearances. That's a problem, in my opinion. They will also be missing key Kirby Dach for the potential entire season due to injury. He was set to become the captain of the Team Canada for the World Juniors this year, but he probably would have lost, so maybe it was good that you didn't go. Additions: Matthias Janmark is notable. Subtractions: they lost Corey Crawford, Brandon Saad, Oli Mata, and Drake Kajula. That's a list. That's a lot of guys. Players to watch: Dylan Strome. With Kirby Dach and Jonathan Toews out this season, the first line center position is his. Dylan Strome will be given his first line center privileges this season and has a chance to shine in this role. This will give him the opportunity to improve and show that he can compete at a high level with the big boys out there. So watch for him to fill those shoes. My other players to watch are actually together, which is that goalie tandem in Colin Delia and Malcolm Subban. This is the goalie tandem of the Chicago Blackhawks, and these individuals have very little actual experience under their belt. On paper, the Blackhawks defense got worse by shipping out Oli Mata, so we could see a very ugly season on the goaltending front. However, goaltenders are unpredictable, and we could see very strong seasons from them. But it's going to be fascinating either way to see how they kind of, get thrown into the fire. So my question for you, Alex, how do you see the Blackhawks faring this season with key players being shipped out, injured, and the goalie tandem, very young in this, in this NHL, How do you think they're going to fare?
Yeah. Not great, to be completely honest with you. I mean, when the organization releases a letter to the fans saying, hey, look, we're rebuilding. It's going to be hard times in Chicago for a little bit. Enjoy Patrick Kane. That's all I can say. But don't overlook them. They're still an NHL team. They obviously beat the Oilers last year. Just thought we'd got to bring that up again, You looked Tradon. You looked so pained mentioning that.
Yeah, I had to mention it, but it hurt. It hurt.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think they're going to be, a total pushover. I do think Patrick Kane is still elite. I do think he can lead this team to at least be competitive in games. That goalie tandem, though, is going to have to step up in ways that we're not prepared to believe in them. But you know what? They're in the NHL. They obviously are talented guys. You never know. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. A 7th place finish is not all that surprising. And I think the only reason they get that is because of the team we're going to talk about next.
Yep.
But you know what? Chicago, you had a great run. Give it a couple more years. You'll be back.
Hey, yeah. I mean, I like that. I mean, they did send a letter to their fans, but again, so did the Rangers, and they're kind of a big deal now. So
yeah, but they lucked into the first overall pick.
Fair enough. So my view, the Chicago Blackhawks management has declared that this team in rebuild mode, as we mentioned, and they will be without their captain this season as well, who seemed kind of pissed about that, by the way, about the rebuild thing. They will be missing their top 2 forwards, and the defensive side of the puck looks bleak along with the goaltending tandem. I expect this to be a rebuild year and don't expect them to crack the playoffs, as they will just not be able to overcome the challenges like the other teams, can in this division. Number 8. And the final team we're going to talk about is this week is the Detroit Red Wings. They finished 17-49-5, last in the Atlantic, the Eastern Conference, and guess what? The entire National Hockey League. They ranked in the basement of the league with just 2 goals per game, 0.53 goals per game below the second worst offensive team in the league, the LA Kings. Like, that's a huge drop. On the defensive side, the Red Wings allowed 3.73 goals per game, which was by far the worst mark in the league behind the Ottawa Senators. On the goaltending side, Jonathan Bernier is coming off a fairly big season where he actually posted a 2.95 goals against average and a 90 save percentage in 46 games. That doesn't seem like big numbers, but remember, guys, the team in front of you was absolute ass. So that's pretty damn good. He actually outperformed Bobrovsky. That's pretty amazing. I like that. Howard is gone after posting a 2.23-2 record while turning in a 4.2 goals against average and a 0.88 save percentage across 27 starts. That's one of the worst in NHL history. Their season was one of the worst in NHL history, but a lot of it has to do with Jimmy Howard's just absolute, like, he turned into Swiss cheese, literally. My outlook for 2021, despite the terrible season last year, GM and former superstar captain Steve Yzerman wasted no time in trying to find improvements in all 3 aspects of the game. On the front, they added Bobby Ryan and Vladislav Nemestikov into the fray. They still have Dylan Larkin, who's a bona fide number 1 center at only the age of 24 and the tallest pillar in this organization. He is the Detroit Red Wings. Anthony Mantha remains a top tier goal scorer on his flank, who's 26 years old himself, and boasts a 40 goal potential upside on a team that should be scoring more goals going forward. On the defensive side, Yzerman also brought in Mark Stahl and Troy Stetcher to fill the roles this year. And while they aren't game changers, they will at least bring improvement on the back end. And he didn't leave the goaltender position unchecked either. As he added Thomas Greiss into the fray, who worked into a 2.74 goals against average and a 9.13 save percentage last season. Not too bad. While not his best season, he is becoming a solid goaltender in this league. So again, those are the major additions. As I mentioned, my players to watch will be Dylan Larkin. Dylan Larkin is slowly becoming one of the best centers in the National Hockey League at such a young age. And he is the face of the organization. He may not produce at breakneck numbers, but in an organization as awful as this one is, he's a huge highlight. And we will look to see him improve offensively and defensively as he looks to bring this team up from the dark basement. And I'm going to have all of the additions to be watching here. I cheated a little bit by picking all of the major additions that Yzerman brought, but I believe they will be the key to providing light at the end of the tunnel. While none of these guys are game breakers in the greatest of senses, they will bring much needed experience to a young core that is just finding their way in the league. And I expect them to, put this team moving in the right direction. So, James, do you think we will see the Red Wings improve on their outing last performance, or will they be the worst team in the league once again?
I 150 billion% think that they will improve, because you can't get worse than what you just
well,
did.
You can.
You can, but then you wouldn't be in the hockey league, man. You'd be playing OHL type shit. Maybe an OHL team could even beat them. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is they put up some pretty historically bad numbers. It's going to be tough to replicate that. Just try a little bit harder, practice for maybe 30 minutes more each day, and they'll put up better numbers. That simple. So yes, they will be better than last year. It's kind of a shame they didn't get number 1 overall. That sucks, man. Like the way the lottery worked, that's tough. They really should have gotten Lafreniere. Got his name right. Yeah, a couple of those acquisitions, though, you mentioned them that I think are big ones. I'm going to highlight one for each part of the game. Thomas Greiss, Bobby Ryan, and Mark Stahl, they're all good additions. A few years past their prime for the most part. And they aren't franchise-altering players, and they won't turn your franchise. They won't automatically make this team like a 30-win team. But they're all pretty good. They're all on short-term contracts. They're pretty much like stopgaps. Otherwise you'd be trying to fix a bullet hole, a Band-Aid. That does not work. We know this. Thank you, Taylor Swift. But it's really more focused on developing their young guys right now, and that's exactly what these guys are brought in to do. I don't know if they're going to be the worst in the league, but they will for sure be down there somewhere.
Yeah. Look, it's amazing that we have to talk about this bottom feeding Red Wings when just not too long ago, their playoff or making it to the playoff run was older than me and you guys. Like they went on a huge run. And guess what? I really commend Yzerman, the GM, for the additions he's made. And I think that, like you said, they're not game breakers, but they're going to give experience to young guys just finding their way. Dylan Larkin is going to take this team over even more. They will not make the playoffs, but I do expect them to make steps in the right direction. And I look forward to seeing the Red Wings once again in the playoffs in a couple of years. So with that is the Central Division, the Discover Cards Central Division. Next week we will be going over the West Division. You got the Kings and the
Honda.
Ducks will be in there. So
The Honda division.
The Honda Western Division.
I'm not calling it that.
Go Honda.
Tradon, great job as always. I know that was very in depth, but that was a ton of good information. Definitely getting us ready for the season.